So now we're moving on to the next part of our meeting, which is our webinar. So I'd like to introduce Rob Holmes, our speaker. Rob Holmes is from Video Creative, award-winning website and branding agency, which he launched in 2014 with over 15 years of experience working on global and national brands at top creative agencies. He now works with clients looking at creative ways to promote their products and services, and he's going to tell us how to drive traffic to your website. And then we'll have questions and answers afterwards. Please post your questions in the chat box. We're now going to mute everybody, and it's over to you, Rob.
So hopefully everyone's seen the work. Has everyone got the workbook in front of them? Did they get the link to the workbook? If not, Dave, can you do you mind sending the link round to the workbook?
I will do.
I would show you the work that I've done, but I've written all over it. But I basically, with this presentation, I've created a workbook and score sheet. So if when Dave sends you the link, if you can click on that link, you can look through that, and that will sort of give you tips and what have you. But the same thing with this workshop I'm doing. You know, you can just listen to it. Obviously, we're doing a recording of it as well, and you can do them separately. You might find there's a lot. I'm going to go quite fast. There's quite a lot of information I'm going to give you, so it might be nice just to sit and listen, and then go through the workbook at a different time. Alternatively, if you've got it printed out in front of you, that's fantastic, and we can go through it together. So, so my presentation is on how to drive traffic to your website, and in this talk, I hope to give you some quick and easy tips on SEO, things you can do yourself. I'm going to look at some Google, how to improve your Google listing, how to get customers to your site, and to improve your hit rate. So like I said, there's a booklet, and also if you do fill out the booklet, I've got a little score sheet with it, and you get different, I've awarded points for different things, and then you get a point at the end of it out of 50, so you can see how well your site performs in these different areas. So, so the first thing to talk about, the real big thing when it comes to SEO is site or Google listings is is site speed. Speed is really important. Google will basically rate your site on how fast it is. So from an SEO point of view, the sort of the blandest, the emptiest, the site with less information will actually get a much better Google rating than the site with images and what have you. So as a designer, I obviously understand the importance of having a site with good content and good images. So it's a kind of a balance. And if you've got the workbook in front of you, the site speed is, you know, so I've given 4 points, where it's between 0 and 3, or between 3 and 6, and that's that. And there's a website which was hopefully if you've got your booklet in front of you, it's a website on the. Can I share screen, Dave? Is that still not? That's not working now. Okay. What I'll do is I will send my presentation to you all. But on the presentation, there's a link there to a developer site on Google, and you can click on there, and then you can put your site into that search engine. And it will give you your site speed. And I would aim for most people's sites should be under 6 seconds. If it's any more than that, Google will actually start giving you a bad rating, so you will actually go down in Google listings. So for me, between 3 and 6 seconds is ideal. Now, how do you get your site? So let's say you do the test and your site is over 6 seconds. How can you improve your site? So the first and most important thing is optimizing your images. There's no need for big images on your site. You want to make sure the images are actually scaled to the size of your site. So if let's say you've got an image that's this size, you want to make sure the image actually fits in that size. Don't choose massive images. You've got to scale them down. Also, it's important to think about the format of the images. The images need to be JPEGs or PNGs. So again, that's something you can Google and find out about, but you make sure the images are the right format for what you want them for. Also, if you're building a site, maybe in something like WordPress, there's plugins called Easy Loading. And basically what this means is when your site loads up, your site will only show the information that the viewer is looking at the time. So for example, if you've got a really long one-page site with loads and loads of information, your site will just show the bit the user, instead of uploading the whole site in one go, it will just show that section, which of course would really means your site would upload to the viewer a lot quicker. Another thing to think about, and again, this may be the harder one of them all, is clean code. Make sure, especially if you're getting developed by a developer, make sure you're not using unnecessary white spaces or line breaks. The cleaner the code, the better the site, and the quicker the site will load. And the final thing, and again, this is something anyone can do, is find out where your site is hosted. Different hosting providers have different download speeds. Some are a lot better than others. For example, GoDaddy is much quicker than 123reg. So have a look at where your site is hosted, and speak to your web developer or whoever's building your site, building yourself. Find out where your site's hosted, because some hosting is much better than others. Again, often you pay for more. The more you pay for, often is the one that's more better. But anyway, that's another thing. Okay, so my next thing to think about is backlinks. Okay, so quite simply, a backlink is a link from someone else's site linking back to your site. Now, this can be any site. It could be a company you're working with. It could be a business directory. It could be some press coverage or anything you've got. And what Google does, Google will rate the site that links back to your site. So, for example, if you had a link from the BBC, Google would say, wow, this site, it must be great because the BBC are linking to it. So anyone who links to your site, you know, the more links you get, the better. Now, I hear what you might be saying. How on earth can I get the BBC to link to my site? And how can I get big companies to link back to my site? And that's true. Without spending lots of money on PR, it could be very hard. But there's a hell of a lot of sites out there that will allow you to set up your own profiles and set up your own. So literally you go in and create your own backlinks back to your site. So in theory, you're doing the hard work. And these sites are things like a Facebook business page, like LinkedIn business page, obviously things like Yale.com, any directories, Thompson directory. And in the worksheet, the workbooks, if we can get the link to you and I can send to you, you've got a list of what I could say are the 50 best ones, the 15 best ones. And you go through those, and you click on those links in the workbooks, and you can then set up your own profile. Now, what I've done in the front of the workbook, I've given you, it's a little document that says your business name, your web address, business address, phone number, email, that sort of stuff. And what you always need to make sure is all the information you put in all these backlinks are exactly the same. So if you spell your name differently, or you give a different address or different phone number, Google won't see it as the same company. So you won't. So suddenly you'll have, let's say you did 15, you'll have 7 backlinks and maybe, you know, to different ones. So the idea is you must make sure that the content is exactly the same throughout all business directories. And so the list, again, going back to my 15, these are all completely free. Some will obviously may have a better listing you can pay for, but these are all free. And again, you know, there's a lot of free listings you can go out there and do it. You can do for yourself. Now, the best free listing you can do is with Google. So I don't know if anyone's heard of Google My Business. If you haven't got yet, a lot of people are nodding, that's great. So if you haven't got one, you must get one. Google My Business, basically Google loves Google. So Google My Business is basically your complete own Google website, if you like. And if you Google your business name and you've got a Google My Business page, it will appear on the right of the Google search. And basically it's like I say, it's a Google My Business page. And you can add anything you want to it. So you can add images, you can add pictures of your team, your staff, office shots, you know, companies you work, your company logo, sorry, examples of your work, anything you can add there. You can also obviously it creates a map and all your, you know, your proper information, your contact details and what have you. So it's a really valuable thing to have. It's completely free to do, and it really recommend it. And obviously Google. And then another thing, once you've done that, people can actually give testimonials and reviews on your work onto Google. And of course, Google really, you know, if you've got 17 reviews, it'll put you higher up than somebody who may only have 2 or 3 reviews. So again, if I had my slides, which is a real shame, I would have shown you mine, and I would have asked you all to give, if you enjoyed the talk, to give me a testimonial. But please do that. If you Google Vinegar Creative, it would come up. Okay, so yeah, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is keywords. The all-important keywords that people often seem to get stuck with, and often when I speak to clients, it's a thing I think people make harder than it needs to be made. Keyword is basically the words you want your site to index for with Google. So when someone goes to Google and whatever they type in, hopefully your site will come up. Now the hard thing is here, very few people are going to be able to index with, like for me, I couldn't index for design, or Dave would find it very hard to index for IT or accounts or health or what have you. For small businesses, we use something called long tail keywords. So what this is, these are keywords that include other things. You can't just have, you know, we're talking about a keywords that maybe have 3 or 4 words put together. So again, if you've got your workbook in front of you, I've given 3 options of how to come up with these keywords. So what I'll do, I'll just talk you through it now. So a good example of that is a niche. You know, what is it your business does? What does your business solve? What's your business USP, for example? So let's say you are a plumber based in Twickenham that specializes in fixing drains. So that obviously is your long tail keyword, maybe Twickenham plumber, drain expert. You know, not just plumber, because if you try to get to the top of Google for plumber, you're competing with all the other plumbers you know. or even you don't know, or all the other plumbers. There's, you know, once you put in Twickenham plumber drain expert, anyone searching for that, you're going to come up much higher than just plumber. Also, no, so that's option. That's the first sort of idea. The next one to look at is what's your mission. You know, what is it you want to do? Are you trying to get people to your site? Are you trying to sell more products? Are you trying to gain more subscribers? Do you want more people to visit your networking group? You know, what is your mission? What is what you want to achieve? And again, in the booklets, and if you haven't got them, I will send them around. At the end, you put down maybe 2 or 3 goals that you would like to achieve. And the next thing is relevant topics. You know, what is it your customers are searching for? What is it your customers are looking for? Is it, for example, going back to my idea, how to fix drain blockages? You know, if you can work out what your customers are asking, you can obviously produce that content on your website. So when they type in, because if you think about how we all use Google, it's how do I, you know, can I, you know, all those sort of questions, and you can answer those questions, your customers will obviously go to your site. Now, if we're going through this booklet well, we should now have sort of different ideas of different routes we'd like to do, different routes, including our keywords.
Rob, sorry to interrupt you. You should be able to share your screen now.
Oh, perfect. It's yes, I can. Okay, let me. Then everyone can stop looking at me. So I'll just quickly, what I'll do is quickly say, obviously, we've got the title, which I probably forgot to say, but how to drive more traffic to your site. What's covered, we've covered. So we've done the speed test. This is the link I was mentioning. And again, we can put, maybe Dave, I don't know if you can, or I can send this around. I'll maybe send something around afterwards, which links so you can actually test your site speed. The backlinks, as we've discussed. The Google My Business page. This is my Google My Business page. And then we've got keywords, which we're discussing now. Okay, so there's a great tool called, and again, if it's in your booklet, you've got it. If not, I can send it around, but it's keywordtool.io. And this is basically a website where anyone can put in what you think your keyword terms are. For going back to my example, I might put in Twickenham plumb drain expert, and then it will come up with how many other people are searching for all those terms. So you put in what you think people are searching for, and it will tell you. So this is a great way of working out what keywords, because you want to make sure you have the keywords that best fit your business, but also people are searching for. So if no one's searching for Twickenham plumber drain expert, there's no point obviously putting all that content, all that time and that effort to get listed for those words. You need to make sure that there's enough amount of people searching for the terms you want to index for. Is everyone kind of keeping up what I'm saying? Does it make sense? Yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Okay, so hopefully now we've kind of got the right keywords we want to use. So with that in mind, we need to make sure those keywords are on our site. And there's lots of different ways of doing that. Lots of different ways to do that. So I've just included a few, but for me, maybe the 6 best places are image names. So you can include, so obviously you've got images on your website. Every image will have, you'd name that image. So it's really important you give that name, instead of calling it image 1 or image 2 or whatever, actually give it a name that links to what your business is doing. So in my example case, it may be, you know, drain expert or plumber or whatever, or in this case, you know, Twickenham drain expert. Okay. You also want to consider URL naming. So it's amazing how many people don't do this, and it's so important. If you've got a site and you've got a page, don't call it the about page, call it about the drain expert. So again, you're using your keywords in the URLs of your site. And the other ones maybe a bit more obvious, you know, have them in the titles of your website, have them in the actual page content, you know, the sub content. So, you know, add these words throughout your site. And of course, once you've done that, you know, Google will see that not only are you talking about being a drain expert, you've also got lots and lots of content on your site about the drain expert. Okay, so that moves nicely on to content. Okay, so we've now got our keywords sorted, and we need to think about content. Now, content is king. Google loves content, whether this is top tips, whether it's step-by-step guides, blogs, a showcase of your work. You know, it's a great way of showing your customers and Google that you have a good knowledge of the subject you're trying to sell. You know, the more information you can give, the more information you can feed your site, the more information you can feed your Google My Business page, feed your LinkedIn page or social media, the better chance you have of really proving to Google you know a lot about your subject. You know, a blog is a great way of doing this. Again, I've gone in the workbooks, I've gone through some ideas, tips of how to help you write blogs and what to write blogs on. A thing I always try and tell my customers is, you really want to write blogs on questions your customers are asking, solve their problems. Yeah, for example, if you're a PR agency, maybe your future customers are asking, how do I get press coverage? So to write a blog on how to get press coverage would obviously answer that question. So get them onto your site. And then once they're on your site, you can, of course, try and sell to them. The same goes for me. Why am I doing a talk that will then become a blog and a video on my site on how to get to the top of Google? Because people are asking that question. I give them those answers. Those people come to my site. They realize how hard it is. They employ me to do it for them. As simple as that. Social media. Yeah. So with anything. So sorry. Just to apologies. Let me go back. So to recap. So the most important things when we're doing our blogs is to write for a person, not a computer. Your blogs and posts need to be read by people. And secondly, as I said before, it's really important to answer the question that people might be asking. When you do any blog or any sort of post, it's really important to post your content regularly. Whether it's once a week or once a month. But then when you do that, you need to post that on social media for these different social media channels. You try and get as much mileage as possible out of the content you're producing. You've gone to all the effort to create this content. You really want to push it out. Whether you share it on Twitter, repost it on Instagram, create an infographic, get your friends and people to share it. Basically push out the content as much as you can, as much as possible. And that moves nicely onto social media. So love it or hate it, social media is here. It's a great way to promote your website. It's a great way to get content, to create content and push it out to everyone. It's the only way you can actually put your website in front of the key people. If there's a key person in your industry, you can actually send them, you can contact them through social media. It's a great way to engage and start a two-way conversation. It's also good, on the other hand, if you want to talk to people, if people have got questions about what you're doing, going back to my example, how do I get press coverage? If people are asking that on social media and you're a PR expert, go on them and answer their questions. Get them to, say, I've written a great blog on this, check it out on my site. So get people from social media onto your site. It's a good way to engage with them, build up an audience and build up trust. People then will start trusting you and like what you're saying. And then, of course, we'll move on to start working with you. In the booklets, I've listed a load of different social media platforms that I think are probably the top 10 and what have you. Obviously, I'm not suggesting you join them all. I mean, there's two levels here. One, you could set up a profile to get the backlink on them, but it's virtually impossible to actually, do social media on all the platforms. I would choose the ones that best suit your business. So, for example, if you're really image focused like myself, you might do a lot of work on Instagram. If you're business to business, it might be more LinkedIn or Twitter. If it's sort of under 18 market, maybe it's TikTok. So it's about finding the right social media for your business. Okay, and then so that's kind of the way to do it. Hopefully, if you have got the worksheets in front of you, please go through it. I have kind of given everyone a score. So if you go through, you should better mark each page have a different score, and then it should be out of 50. Hopefully, you can see the areas that you can improve and where your scores can be, areas for improvement. If you do need any more help, I'd love to, please do get in touch. I love helping people out and showing people my way of doing things. I was going to say the best way of doing things, but my way of doing things. For me nowadays, a website is the middle of our digital presence. It's the place everything should link back to. All your content you produce should be stored on your site. You should push it out in social media to drive people back to your site and to obviously feed Google with all that content it needs. So suddenly start turning up in searches for what you're doing. And that's it. Good luck. And like I say, if anyone got any questions, please fire them away. And there we go. John, should I stop sharing?
Okay, thanks very much, Rob, for that excellent talk, some great advice and tips. And if you want further information, do contact Rob directly. We're now going to have questions and answers. Over to you, Dave. I see that Sally Rule has already put one in the chat box.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting. And I've been scribbling around and I do have the workbook. I just didn't have it printed out. Thank you.
No worries.
And I would like to come back to you on that. You talk about backlinks. I understand, and I'm not technical, so please speak in words of one syllable. I understand that you can get profiles and get to them. How do they get to your site? Where do they appear? Do they appear as a little word?
No, so the backlink is from the profile site. So if you, let's say you go to, for example, Yale.com,
Yeah.
you can create a business profile on Yale.com with all your business information, and then it will say link to your site. And then you put the link in, so www.yoursite URL, and then that is the backlink to your site. So you don't have to do anything. So you can even choose, the link could be a link to a landing page or something. It could be anything. So you actually create, and that's the beautiful thing about this. You don't actually need anyone else to do any work for you. You've got to do the work. You're putting the link in there. So the more you do, the more backlinks you can get to your site.
Thank you. I thought it was you have to have a little coding on your website. So that was me understanding. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem at all.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have some more questions?
I've got a really one that I've never actually dared ask. What exactly is an infographic? Everybody is all about infographic. What is it?
So an infographic is like information in a graphic. So for example, you'd have so you know, like, I mean, I don't want to say clip art, but you've got some sort of illustration, sort of hand drawn or a graphic, whether it's a speech bubble or so it's like it's a I mean, I can send you some I've done. It's pretty hard to explain, but it's the sort of thing you might. So it's giving some information across in a graphical way. So it could be, you know, you see it a lot in, you know, in like for example, I don't know why I'm thinking this, but you know, the toilets. You know, obviously that's an infographic of a person, a man and a woman. Do you know what I mean? So you could say again, all those graphics, instead of saying, you know, ladies and gents, that's an infographic. So it's anything, any way of showing your information across. In an info way, so in a graphic way. Sorry, yeah. So getting your information across in a graphic way.
That's not really new. So why is it such a big buzzword at the moment? Everyone is like really pushing. Oh, you must have infographics. You must kind of.
Oh, I mean, the good thing about it. So you, for example, you could do a blog post about the benefits of Prosecco in lockdown, and you might have a picture of sort of a person really stressed. Look at that, hands on their head, and then the bottle opens, and then they're really chilled back. Do you know what I mean? You could do it as an infographic, and obviously you can post that onto a blog, but you can also give that title, the benefits of Prosecco, and then if someone wants to Google the benefits of Prosecco, your picture might come up in a Google search. And of course, if you brand it with the company logo, that's a nice way. And also, it's that infographic could then be posted on social media, so it's a much more usable thing than obviously a blog post. You know, you've got to go the effort of reading it. People want information quickly, and
now I get it. Why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd add, I do this myself all the time. If I don't understand something, and being a technical person, everyone expects you to know everything. Well, funny enough, we don't. But try Googling it and look for images. So when you Google something, if you put infographic, and you'll see options underneath. And if you go for images, you'll see lots of other people's versions of infographics. And I totally agree with everything Rob said. And if you're more of a visual person, you probably relate more to visual content than written content. But have a look at Google and see what you find. And if you've any other questions, please feel free to come back to any of us.
No such thing as a stupid question.
Exactly.
I ask them all the time.
I see Phil has put one in the chat box. Phil, would you like to ask that?
I think he's on mute.
You're on mute.
Yes, it was about the Google, where are we? Google My Business websites. Can you have several of these, each for a different business? If you
of course. As long, I mean, yeah, you can have, as long as you have the way Google has to verify them. So as long as you've got like an email address or a business address, so where Google can actually verify that you are the owner of that business, you can set up as many as you like. You know, because as long as they're all different businesses, aren't they? So
yes.
And I recommend doing that. I think it's what, you know, you should have one for every business.
Right. Okay, great, thanks. Oh, the other thing is how are we going to get the workbook if we haven't got
I've got everyone's email address, so I will send. I mean, it was in the, if everyone's been sent by the Eventbrite, there was a link in the Eventbrite, but I will send you a PDF of it now. Right. And I'll also send a PDF of my presentation, just so you've got it all to hand. And then, like I say, if anyone's got any questions, just fire them over. But I will email everyone with all that information.
That's great. Great presentation. Can I just give a shout out to Charles Burns?
Thank you. Thank you.
Charles Burns, I have one of your silhouettes. You did one of me.
Where was it done, Phil?
This was at a golf club. A friend of mine was having his birthday party there, and it was at I think it was Betchworth Golf Club.
Oh yes, yes, that rings a bell. Yes.
Yeah, that was really great. Heck, he's brilliant. He's an absolute genius, I have to say.
And he also has a question, as does Celia, but I saw Charles's hand go up first. So
Yes,
Charles, please ask
I did have
away.
a quick question for Rob. I do have your workbook, by the way. Thank you, Rob. The question was about, you mentioned there are differences between different hosting platforms. You mentioned GoDaddy and one other. I mean, I use a hosting platform called SiteGround, but I'm not, how would the best way be to find out what kind of hosting speeds that has, versus other platforms?
So with everything, you can obviously Google it. So you can put what the best hosting speeds, and it will come up with a list of the best ones. I mean, obviously, if your site's hosted already currently, you can go on their website and it will tell you their speeds. A lot of companies will have different speeds. So a lot of hosting companies will have sort of different levels, and they'll obviously give you maybe the basic package, and then might try and upgrade you to a faster host. But I mean, have a look and see what the speeds are like. Like I say, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of sites out there that are a lot of hosting companies that aren't very good, and there's a lot that are really good, and it often is the same price. So
can I just add a couple of cents in there as well, Charles? Cool. I have a link where I'll send it to you. But what happens in many cases is the hosting platform gives you the indication that the site is yours, but you're actually sharing resources with lots of other people. So you could be sharing a server with maybe 100 other websites, although you wouldn't know it. So you can look at that, and I will send you a link so you can find that out from your current hosting provider. And also you can look at things like virtual private servers. So you can start to have less people on the server. And again, with a virtual server, it's a server within a server, but basically you're prioritizing your traffic. But obviously these things start to cost more. Or if you want to go the whole hog, you can have a whole server to yourself with just your website. But obviously that becomes very expensive. But I'll send you some more details after this meeting.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, have we got any more questions?
Celia had her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of things for Charles first. SiteGround, it's one of the best hosting companies out there, actually, Charles. And they have, they have their servers in Chessington. And a lot of them, they're not even in the UK. So you're probably in good hands anyway. Obviously, if you need more than what Dave just suggested, it might be a good way forward. But I have a question for you, Rob, on Google My Business. How do you recommend we address the issue that a lot of us have registered businesses in our home address? And we may not necessarily like to have a personal address, all over the internet. Is there anything we can do to manipulate a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. You don't actually need to put your home address on there. So it's your choice. Google need to verify you, but obviously they can verify you with your phone number or with your email address. So what I would suggest doing is what I've done is I've just put my road name. I mean, I'm not too wide. Obviously, people may be more than me, but I put my road name and I put my my postcode, so people know roughly where I am, but not actually the exact address. Obviously, you could just put, Teddington. You don't have to put everything in there. As long as they can verify you, and Google now will verify you with an email address and I believe a phone number. You don't need to put your address on there. Obviously, if you want to get the map of where you are, you need to obviously have your address. So the map wouldn't work without your address. But if you have to do it without the map, you can just put a sort of Teddington, London or something.
I didn't think it was possible not to have the postcode. I think they do need, at least when I set mine up, and it's a good few years ago, they needed a postcode. And once you have a postcode, they're so good here that, it's a nano, a tiny, precisely.
If you can definitely do it without your address, but you won't obviously have the map. Because we've done it for WeAreBiz, haven't we, Dave? So you can do it without. You then don't because WeAreBiz it's three of us, so we haven't actually got an address for it. So in which case there's no address. So which obviously some people I quite like having an address. It's quite nice. People can see where you are, and then you can obviously get business more locally. But yeah, you can definitely verify yourself without having an address.
You can also speak. I know some accountants will allow you to use their address. You can go for a PO box if you wish. A lot of telephone answering services also let you use their address, but I'd definitely check with either your accountant or your telephone answering service before assuming that you can do that, because there may be a small charge for that.
That's a good tip, Dave. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Well, I've got one. Rob, how often should you update your website?
A great question. I mean, the honest one, there's no sort of particular magical number. Obviously, you want to keep your website updated as much as possible. I mean, some people update their sites every day with blog posts and updating content. I think for small businesses, you know, once a week, once a month is fine. I mean, I think really, you know, it's how much time, you know, you've got to be out winning business and actually doing the work. So, I mean, I think if people can aim to update, you know, add a blog post once a month, that's probably enough. But it's really important you do update it regularly, because I think often I see a site and it's not been touched for sort of 3 or 4 years, and it's just, you know, Google will see that as a site that's of no value to anyone, because it's outdated content. And obviously, a simple ways of updating it could be like social media feeds. You've got a social media feed. If you're updating on Twitter and Instagram regularly, you might as well add that feed to your site so it updates itself. So that's probably putting fresh content on your site. And of course, like I said before with a blog, you know, if you're doing a blog, it's a very easy way to write an article, put it up on the site, and then adding fresh content. And of course, case studies. Case studies are good. So if you're doing great work, you know, why not showcase your work on your site? Again, a good way to get fresh content onto your site.
Great, thank you very much. So do we have any more questions at all? No, well, in that case, then I'll conclude the meeting. Thanks very much for joining us, everybody. That concludes our first meeting of WeAreBiz. Feedback's very important to us, so please feel free to email us or engage with us on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our next meeting is on Wednesday, the 10th of February at 11 o'clock, when Dave Webster from the Webster Consultancy will be telling us about the future of broadband. Dave, would you like to say a few words about that, please?
Sure. I'm absolutely sure the people in this meeting have experienced probably more problems than they would have liked to this in 2020 with the COVID virus. So next month, we're going to be talking about what you can do to improve the services that you currently have, some things that you can do to get better coverage in your property. And there's some really good news heading our way, because there's new technology that we have available now, which will certainly turbocharge many of the services that you currently get and give you a lot more flexibility too. So hopefully that's been a little taster. I'm trying to provoke you into coming again. We would love to see some of the faces back, or all of the faces back next month, and hopefully we will be able to give you some additional information to drive your own business forward, whether it be with websites and hopefully next month with regards to broadband.
Thank you, Dave. And you can visit the website to book, www.wearebiz.co.uk. So it's goodbye from me, Dave.
Goodbye, everybody. And please get in touch if you have any questions.
And Rob.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Okay, then. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.